an employment attorney that I'm just sensitive to, because I think not only am I concerned about my son's health, but I'm also concerned about employees' health and well-being. And I see when Mr. Shannon had mentioned earlier about equity, and I thought, well, there are some classrooms I found out that do have air conditioning. The temporary classrooms, I know Glorietta do. And so within the first graders, there are 2 that have them and 2 that don't. And my friends in the other 2 classrooms don't have the same issue or passion or concern that I do, because their kids haven't faced it, although they think next year I probably will be there in the school board meetings. And although that's wonderful that they have air conditioning, I also think, well, then the administrative offices have it. And if, like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, why don't all the classrooms have it, or why don't we shift things around so that there's a little bit more equity? So when I suggested that we bring in some of these temporary fixes, like having air conditioning units, I was hopeful that would get some traction, and it seems I really appreciate the sort of consideration and the questions that have come from the school board and Mr. Howes, and it seems like there's a lot of agreement that we need air conditioning. We just need to figure out a way to get it. But then I think about what's being proposed with regard to heat days, and as a working parent, that is frightening to me, because that means that now I might need to take off 10 days of school, perhaps, to be able to be there for my kid so he doesn't have a red face and faint in school. And then now I have probably very close to no vacation days, and I'm spending them with my child to keep him cool. It seems like that might be a fix in some regards, but really not a very good fix at all for equity for 2-parent working families. You know, Carol, you had mentioned earlier about rewarding teachers and creating a great work environment, and that was on a different topic, but that made me think, this is one way that you guys can make a difference here, is whether it's through passing a bond measure, I gotta go, I got it, but do what you can and do it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles Shannon, President. There was a comment made earlier about a teacher having an air conditioner by her side. There was a specific reason for that, and there needs to be sensitivity to that. On behalf of OEA, I want to say that we know the long-term goal is to pass a bond and to put air conditioning in classrooms. But we also know there needs to be short-term goals, or short-term goals. At the last board meeting, I made a statement that these heat days could help for some of those days. They've done it down in Campbell, San Jose. There were 2 days identified. It helped. Parents are appreciative. It wasn't the 10 days. Down in San Diego, there were 120 schools. Throughout the nation, I did a search. There's a lot of schools that do this. I know it's a hardship for parents. I don't know that we're going to have 10 to 20 days where it exceeds, 85 degrees in the classroom. I do want to say that I think a multi-tiered approach is sensible. I know in my own classroom, I've tried a day where kids weren't at school and it was really warm, and I decided to go to school and see what the temperature was without turning on the fans. And then a day when the kids were there, of course, I had my 2 ceiling fans on. It did reduce it 5 or more degrees. The kids noticed that. I don't know if you know this, but kids don't sweat like adults do. I was doing some medical research, and I didn't know this about children, but they get warmer a lot quicker than adults, and they can't cool off as quick as adults in their development. And I'm concerned about that, because there may be long-term effects of these days where it exceeds a certain temperature. So I think we have a liability, and at any time someone's going to file a lawsuit. It's just going to happen, especially with what we heard tonight. The fire safety is not up to code, because there's nothing that's triggered that need to bring it up to code. So I think that creates liability. I think the district needs to consider that. And I think what Sarah was saying, I do agree with her, 2016 is a real opportunity for us, and we need to get started. And if we don't, that creates even more liability. You had the opportunity to do that as a board, and you didn't do it. I think by putting the film on the windows, I have 2 ceiling fans. Other classrooms don't have 2 ceiling fans. And I noticed in those classrooms, because I did temperature study in my school, the ones that didn't have the 2 fans, ceiling fans, we're not talking about those little mini fans that was mentioned earlier, it makes a noticeable difference. And my kids will say, it feels good having that air blowing on me, and reducing it 5 for more degrees, you know, did help. It's not the answer, but why would we wait 3 to 5 years for the real solution? In the meantime, let's just fry their brains. That seems to be okay. And then we come here and we freeze to death, because every time I come to this location, I'm constantly turning the air conditioning off. So it seems like the adults take care of themselves in the locations where they have the luxury of air conditioning, and we're just not being thoughtful right now about the kids. I know we want to be, but I need to see more traction tonight. I'm losing a little bit of faith on this issue. Come on, adults, let's step up to the plate and let's think of some multi-tiered solutions until we have that bond that passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public?
I just have a question of Mr. House.
Yes.
The 250,000 for the portable.
You can just direct it to me.
Oh, sorry.
Process.
Okay, so what am I supposed to do?
You can just ask us and we can make it.
So I'd like to know the 250,000, what goes into that for AC portable units? Only because back of the envelope math for Sleepy Hollow was like $8,000. So I'd just love to know, even across the school sites, best case scenario, $500 a unit, you know, for 20 classrooms, that's still like 50 to 60,000. So I'd just love to know what goes into that 250,000 for portables.
Thank you.
The number was developed on the basis of approximately 20 classrooms per school, approximately 40 at the intermediate school, assuming every room had, you know, there's some schools where they're more and some less, and there are some spaces that would, you know, be learning spaces and others that really are not. So it's just a ballpark number for coming up with how many rooms at each, and the whole district would require those units. Units run about anywhere from $500 to $600, including tax. And then in addition, you have to exhaust them out of the room, so you have to retrofit something through the window and put a ductwork that exhausts the hot air from the machine. So you've got to figure out how to do that. And if you got 3 machines, you got to do 3 exits exhausting to the outside. So you're talking a couple of $100 more in that work. It's not a lot of work, but it's a couple $100 to do it. So if you had 3 units, $600 each, that's $1,800, plus 200 is 2,000, times 100 and, what is it, 300 and, whatever, 3 times 1 is 360, 360 times 2,000 is, gets you up to 240. $2,000 per room.
Oh, it's $2,000 per, I thought it would be $1,000 per room.
No.
Because it's 500 and then it
No, because you need more than 1 unit. One unit is not
won't
sufficient
do, okay,
to cool the room.
got it.
And
Okay.
again, that's also relative to the size of the room. You may have a smaller classroom. Some of them have higher ceilings, so they're not all uniformly the same type of room. So the configuration, you know, on average could be about 3 units per space, because you have, the occupancy also generates heat too from the people, the little people in it. And so you have, you know, some occupancy issues.
Okay.
Those units are designed for residential uses primarily, not for schools.
Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, so let's bring this back to the board. I have a question about, on the short-term items, I mean, what's the best short-term solution? Is it affordable air units, or is it ceiling fans, reflective window film, possible emergency heat days, or not?
Trees.
What
And are we acknowledging that we can't only do short-term solutions alone? We need to work on short-term and long-term?
I'm just trying to address at this moment, just
Mhm.
wondering about the short term, because clearly a long-term solution, we're looking at a couple of years away, or at least well into next figure out what the best short-term solution would be.
I'd like to see us do a combination of all of the above plus, you know, so we would get the light reflecting film, we would get the fans, and what about one air conditioning unit per room? So you at least get some improvement, and that could be done, I would think, quickly. While we then start a work group or a study session on a real substantial long-term facilities plan, making the buildings completely up to code and date.
Yeah, I think we might be close. I think, I'd like to consider, the notion that we do an all-out upfront assault on heat, a heat assault for, this year, as much as our resources, can allow, and I think we can look at resources both from pool funds and from parents clubs, as we need to, because I think we should try a little bit of each. And I think the portable units, we leave discretion on whether we should choose a few rooms at each school or spread out. I don't, you're gonna get a better sense, but I think we should do the units. I think we should consider what a heat day would look like, even if there's just 2 of them, and do the reflective windows. And, you know, again, on ceiling fans, maybe look at the places where it's most viable to do.
Well, can I ask about electrical load, either on the ceiling, doing all ceiling fans, or on the portable units, or if we're doing both? I mean, are we exceeding our bounds somehow if we're trying to do that? I would like to come up with something
Yeah.
that's viable. You know, that's why I'm asking the question to you, really, or maybe to Rick, you know, are we better off trying, if we're looking for a short-term measure that will provide, some relief until we can figure out a way to move forward on a bond? Are we better off doing, sort of what Matt suggested of ceiling fans and a reflective window film, possibly with heat days if necessary, although that is, a bit of a pain for parents. Are we better off doing that, or trying to do the portable units, or trying to do a combination of both, or is that, exceeding our electrical capacity?
Well, I mean, PG&E will,
We don't want to
They'll
blow
sell
a
it to us.
fuse.
they'll sell, you don't have a safety issue on it.
Okay.
They'll sell you the power in excess of what you're using. It's just, it will increase your,
Yes.
adding any load, be it fans or these portable units significantly more than fans, will add to your operating costs. But the capital cost of the portable units is your biggest ticket item, not your increased PG costs.
I mean, I guess, are we going to get sufficient improvement doing ceiling fans and reflective window film? For short term,
I can't give you, sufficient is unfortunately a bit of a.
Yeah.
That's not important.
There will be.
understanding,
There will be improvement.
improvement.
There will be improvement. Will you bring it below the ASHRAE standard? No.
No, not 74.
right, but it sounds like we won't even get
Isn't it
that.
85?
Portable.
74 is the ASHRAE.
No, but when it was in our classroom, it was 85 when the
Well,
fans
it's
were
not
on.
about that.
It's a long ways, but I'm looking at and seeing Catherine and Charles going, I think
Well, it
that,
sounds like we need to do
something.
something.
Clearly
Yeah.
not.
I don't pray,
It's
but I'm
not gonna
praying.
be
Exactly.
sufficient.
we're not gonna be able
It's just
to
not
air
gonna be.
condition the classes down to 74 degrees
Right.
using temporary measures, but we need to use temporary measures as soon as possible. That's what I'm
We need
hearing.
to
Right,
do
well,
both.
I think
We need
we're,
to do
I think
temporary
we're
measures
saying,
and
I think all 5 people,
Yeah.
not here anymore, all 5 people are saying the same thing.
Right.
about
The question-
temporary measures.
Yes,
Yes, so we need to do
Yes.
temporary
about
measures.
temporary measures, and the question is,
Which
Jason,
ones?
it sounds like in your mind, you're saying a combination of everything.
Yes.
I'd like to see,
And
yes.
Carol, you're.
You mean as
saying
far as
something
what
similar.
temporary measures?
I listed the
Same.
portable units, student days, let's study what 2 student days would look like, reflective film,
Ceiling fans.
Ceiling
ceiling
fans.
fans. without overdoing our capacity, PG&E, we can pay PG&E for it, we do have the funding for it. The capacity I'm most worried about is the ability of putting together a plan that can get, the assault happening by this spring.
As soon as possible.
So I look to staff to tell us what's possible, but I think we should try them all. That's just where I'm at.
Well, I also want to add something on this short term, I also want to add something on long term, but on the short term for ceiling fans, I don't think it's necessarily the best thing just to add the same ceiling fans that we have, alone, because yes, they stir the air around, but they're not circulating the air from outside. Why can't we investigate, is there, ceiling fans like they have those whole house fans, is there anything like that for schools where you're bringing air in from the outside? Or that's on a timer or anything like that. I don't know what's possible.
That's a much more significant, you're
More
talking about
sophisticated.
economizers. Those are things that are gonna require much more significant. investment.
That's not a
Well,
short
that's not a
term.
short term.
Okay, so short term
That's
would
DSA,
be more
that's-
of the same ceiling fans, and then the long term would be better ceiling fans. I hate to do ceiling fans twice, but
So
we
I'd like
have to
make a
do.
motion.
Well,
Let's do it.
this is
Action.
an action
This is
item.
an action.
I also wanted to say something else on the long term. This is where we're supposed to speak up. Again, I wanted to point out in our June board packet from 2015, where we talked about Fred's bonds, we had a report from our bond council, K&N, and they pointed out that it was March 1995 was the last time we had a facilities bond on our ballot. That was for $16 million. Well, 1995, that was 20 years ago. So, and our schools are 50 years old. I just wanted to point that out because I don't want to sound like I'm a broken record, but if we want to even consider any kind of bond in 2016, if we want to wait till 2018, that's fine. I just want to say, you don't have to design the whole thing before you decide to go on a bond. That's why you get a consultant. And I want to point out both Walnut Creek and Lafayette are going out for a bond in 2016. We could try to talk to somebody to find out what's possible going forward, whether air conditioning would appeal to the voters or whatever, all these other millions of facilities projects we have. Seismic, old portable replacement, the painting, all of the ongoing maintenance. I understand Lafayette is doing a lot of ongoing maintenance with what they're going to go out for their bond for. And it doesn't have to be a huge amount of money. But I don't want to not say enough to where people don't understand. If we don't do something soon, we're going to miss the window of opportunity.
I agree with you, and I just think that since we're going to be talking about district goals next for this year's goals,
Okay.
that would be an
We
appropriate
can talk about it again then.
talking about that.
Okay.
So I'm not
But
trying to
okay, so going back
stop
to
the
air
conversation
conditioning.
on that, I'm
Mhm.
just trying to deal with the air conditioning piece, and I know that that's part of the air conditioning piece, but I just think we could probably move things forward better if we talk about that into
The whole piece, okay. But just so you're clear, my statement is, I think we do need to do the short-term things that we've already talked about, but I also think we need to move ahead on long-term, even for air conditioning, if we want anything done, because otherwise it's
I think we're all agreed on
multiple
that.
years. Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to add is, in terms of heat days, I don't know if we couldn't, like the following year, if it's a problem, we aren't any better off, could consider extending the calendar. I mean, it seems like you said 2 days because of the calendar, but if we needed to, can we extend the calendar and then have more heat days as a possibility? I think it's-
That's when the heat days will be.
That's
That's why snow days work a little better, because you're extending your school calendar in June.
Right, well, maybe we can't extend the calendar in June for whatever reason, but if we don't have air conditioning like next fall, or next year, we could be extending the calendar next year. That helps, if I understand it correctly, I don't know.
Okay, so it sounds like you want to give direction to the district to go ahead and come up with a plan that can be implemented to utilize the items that we discussed, the ceiling fans, the reflective film, excuse me, thank you. The reflective film, the portable units, and the
Can't we talk about whether there's consensus also on this agenda item to consider long-term for air conditioning? Or, it sounds like you're completely dismissing that because it's also on the goals. I mean,
I'm not trying to dismiss it, I'm just trying to come up with something that we are actually giving direction on. And like I said, I thought during the district goals discussion, we could have a larger discussion about whether we wanted to add a goal having to do with the bond. You know what I'm saying?
well,
I feel like maybe
I
that would be
made
the
my
more appropriate
statement that I
phrase
think
for us.
we should also
Right.
go after a long-term solution for air conditioning. So maybe, I don't know
This
whether.
is dealing just with the short term on this particular direction that we're giving.
Right,
That's
I know,
true.
you're
And I'm not trying to-
excluding the long-term
I'm not trying to,
solution.
I'm not trying to exclude a long-term solution, I'm just trying to move that discussion into our district goals discussion.
Okay.
Does that sound fair?
Consensus,
Are we clear on? Okay.
Thank you. We're getting traction. We're getting traction.
Okay, so that was discussion item B, thank you, Rick and Stuart. Now we move on to action item C,
Okay,
district goals.
discussion item.
Yeah, sorry, discussion item.
So we prepared a draft set of district goals and we've forwarded you all the input that we've collected. And it's now up to the board to process the drafts and then consider the adjustments, additions, or deletions.
Use your 10 minutes.
Well, I'm trying to save time.
I'd like to make a comment. I would like us to try to move toward a governance calendar where we get the goals for the coming year, instead of getting the goals in the middle of the existing year. Because
We typically don't do it in the middle of the year, but because of some other issues that occurred this year, we were delayed. So we typically act on them in September, after processing them in August.
that makes more sense to me.
We had a whole other process to deal with this year.
So are there questions?
Okay, so about the long-term solution for the air conditioning. I'm looking at item number 2, A2, and
No, B2.
182.
Under facilities.
one, yeah, A2. So it seems to me that we need a more comprehensive long-range plan. I recall Joe telling us at one time that he had hired a consultant to talk about how we could upgrade our facilities, and the recommendation is to tear them all down and build them over again. And I'm very concerned about that. I'd like to see us have some, I don't know what the mechanism would be, a working group, a study session, or a series of sessions to really assess what we really need to do to make our buildings modern and up to date with insulation and 30-year roofs and double pane windows and whatever it is. And it just, that seems to me to be a bond about more than just air conditioning. Of course, we would have to have air conditioning and central heating and stuff like that, but I think we need more. And I'd like to see us somehow pursue that discussion.
I'd like to support that, and the goal really, what's interesting about the goal is that the goal states it in the statement, develop a vision and long-range plan. And I think it's time we bite the big bullet and ask the big question about what these buildings are gonna look like in 30 more years, so that my kids aren't in the same building.
Please.
And, you know, and we have master plans, there's a lot of study, there's a lot that can be driven from that, but I think we have to ask the big question, which is, how do you get, to Joe's comment, do we just have to realize these buildings have to come down? Or is there a sensible way to incrementally rebuild them? I don't know, but we have to ask that question. The bond will fund that. The vision will help people understand where we're going. But I sort of feel like that's whether it's a sub D or whether we expand under A, that's a fundamental question I think would be useful to ask and answer as a board.
Can I add to that? And Carol, I agree with both of what you both said. And Carol said possibly a study session or a subcommittee or something like that. We could have a study session, we could set up a subcommittee, we could try to rebuild all of our schools, and the bond could go after that, except that what dollar amount is gonna come next to that? And will the voters support a bond that's gonna be attached to rebuilding all our schools? That is kind of unrealistic, but I'm not trying to discourage the process at all. I think we do need to have a study session, or a facilities subcommittee to investigate and come back to the board, one or the other or both. I think rather, knowing that we have a facilities bond, I can't remember facilities master plan, I can't remember the original year, but the most recent one we had was in 2013. Yeah, 2008, thank you. 2008 and then 2013. And we can do another needs assessment or another facilities plan, but that's, another consultant and another year probably of time going by. Not that we don't need a consultant, but I think we should kind of do all of it at once, rather than, I think we should start talking about what do we want in our schools. At the same time, I think we should hire someone to come in and talk to us about the political landscape of if we want to upgrade our schools, because that's what political consultants who advise you on how to do a bond, that's what they do. What's the political landscape? Can we rebuild our schools from scratch? Can we, what would it take to get what kind of bond would it take to do that? If that's not feasible, what are we looking at? What are the pieces? What's the most, what will the voters bear? That's why you do a poll. I would encourage us to move on this more quickly and not try to reinvent the wheel, since we've already got 2 master facilities plans and multiple reports on temperature and air conditioning. Clearly we need to do something, and of course we don't want to just put in permanent air conditioning on a building that we're going to tear down and rebuild, but we need some advice on the whole thing. So I would encourage us to try to set up probably a facilities study session, since that would include all board members, and I don't see that anyone wants to be left out. And at
I'm
the
kind
same
of wondering
time,
if we should do like a facilities and bond workshop or something like that, where we can
that's a really good
invite
idea.
political consultant or consultants, if we wanted to get more than one perspective. I don't know how,
Yeah,
go about finding that person, but my concern is the timing.
right,
Because we really would have to get on this, and we have a lot on our plates
right.
because of the superintendent search.
And then in person,
In January, which I think would be when we would have to be trying to put together something like this. If
Well-
we're really gonna try to move forward.
We should
I-
develop the goal first, and then we'll figure that out.
Okay.
Well, I think
So I
that having a political consultant would really help, because then we could figure out, do we want to come up with a grand plan that's gonna take 5 years, or should we do something else?
So
And,
I think what Joe suggested, it's a good suggestion, is that we need to add a goal that would then drive this forward, which is why I was trying to direct us over to here. So we need to add, I think we need to add a goal into the facilities section. I'm sure I wrote down and scribbled. Add a goal of going out for a bond in November 2016.
Or should it be, rather than, I think what you were going for and describing, which I really like, is a workshop. I think a goal could be moving C to D, because that's just communication, and a new C that is hold, a workshop to decide whether and when to pursue a bond. That leaves us,
Whether and when.
yeah, because
A
the
workshop,
feasibility of,
feasibility of going out for a bond.
yeah. And we can be specific in 2016 or 18, because I think the feedback we'll get is gonna be one or the other. This is a good year for bonds, the economy's good, get out there, do it. Or, no, what you're proposing is a big deal, and you're gonna have to spend a lot more time, developing the plan. I have no idea the right answer.
My concern is if there is, I don't know if we would qualify for any state money because there is supposed to be a state.
Until there's a
You're saying
new-
we're
Yeah,
not
it's-
going
it's-
to qualify for anything, so we don't need to have that driving us as a
Right.
factor.
But there could be more state money coming, we don't know.
Well, and the other factor is in sort of harkening back to what I was talking about before about the possible loss of Prop 30 funding and the increase in STIRS and the PERS and, sort of maxing out on our LCFF and not knowing what that's going to be. We need to be cognizant of what our future needs might be on our general fund side. Which I'd hate, I guess, just putting feasibility of going out for a bond in November 2016 or 18, or not November, 2016 or 18, makes me worry that not move forward quickly enough to get the possibility of it being in 2016, and that would need to be quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2016 versus 2018.
I mean, if your goal by the end of the year is to have.
Do you wanna just
do
say
feasibility,
2016?
That's why I would,
So
Well,
whether
you could be more
16 or
specific.
later?
And say by February, we have, that discussion.
No, I think we need it in January.
We're gonna do in January, we're gonna be hiring a.
That's
I
a
mean,
big
if you want
ask.
something on a, you
Okay,
have to get
if we-
something on,
if we
you
aren't
have to
gonna-
put it on the ballot by, you have like until
August, 88 days before the election, yeah.
And before August,
You're an expert.
before August, we would have to do a poll. We'd have to hire a political consultant.
I guess I
And
just
get
don't want
some
feasibility
support.
to lose the weight of what we're saying.
Well, I think you're looking though at exploring all these options in a meeting and then deciding, what you can do based on what you come up with. So feasibility just kind of says, let's look at the pros and cons and how soon we can do it. To your.
Well, that's why I don't think.
Yeah, I think Julie's trying to get at, can we do something in 2016? If we
Which we
can't do
realize
anything in
would be
2016,
pushing.
yeah.
But that's the question that's what you would focus the study session on.
If we can't do it in 2016, then the alternative would be later.
But at least that would be what the study session could focus on.
Yeah,
I don't think that we could do it in 2016 myself, develop a whole plan for every single school site and making them modern. That's,
no, but I think your goal
I think
is
we could
huge.
come up with something.
I think we
your
could come up with
goal is
something, I
too
think it's, yeah,
big.
I think,
We
yeah,
might
exactly.
decide to do something smaller in the short term. That's
And
what the
then more
discussion would
later,
be.
yeah.
yeah.
I don't think we can get the support for redoing all the schools and doing a huge grand plan
And that
in
was
one,
under us.
in one election, yeah. And, yeah.
But we could come up with a vision that fits step by step toward that.
Yeah.
And with a good architect and with good planning, you can see where the school's going.
Right, and I think Sarah's point is you don't have to have
Yeah,
the detailed plans, you need
That's
to
right.
know, okay, generally speaking,
Yeah.
these are the items that would be included in this, and this is the general amount of how much that would cost. You do your full-
Yeah, we don't, I mean, we need to have, you have to have a needs assessment, going back to what they told us, you have to have a needs assessment, but that doesn't have to be detailed, that's general. Then you get your political consultant to tell you what is realistic in terms of what your voters will support. You can't just have an unlimited ask, because your voters won't support it, just like a parcel tax.
so the roads people went through the same process. You lay out some plans in that poll, and that's going to
Mhm.
inform us a
Right.
lot.
Right.
Okay, so we are looking to add item C to Roman numeral 1.
And what is he gonna say?
Do a bond feasibility workshop on facilities upgrades.
I just said, I don't
No,
know.
for
I just wrote
2016.
feasibility of going out for a bond in November 2016, but that's
Explore,
explore feasibility of
Explore-
a facility.
well, how
bond.
specifically do we wanna get? Do we wanna say hold a
I
study
think
session?
maybe as a future
Explore-
agenda item, we should consider that, future agenda item.
Yeah.
And
How to do it? Okay.
Put a workshop on there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure.
So for this one, it would say explore the feasibility
Explore
of
feasibility
a
of going out for
2016
facility
bond,
Or is it a GO bond?
2016 facilities bond.
Facility
Is that the right
bond?
term, Joe or
GO bond?
Stuart? Explore feasibility of a 2016 facilities bond.
We got it.
Okay. I have some other comments back above on this topic.
Okay.
And that facilities bond, I think, should address a lot of these needs, but going back up, number 2, where it says complete the next phase of the facility task force priority projects authorized by the board pursuant to the 2013 master plan. Underneath it, it says 4 bullets. Painting, I remember we talked about that recently last year. Roof repair, I know we're doing that. Window replacement, that's something that I remember seeing on the Terra Verde study, but I also, or one of those other energy efficiency ones, but I remember also seeing them say that it wasn't cost effective to replace, there was something about replacing all the single pane with double pane, but it wasn't cost effective, so I thought we weren't doing that, so I was surprised to see that here.
Is that the different, different, yeah.
And we have a approved PSA plan that's for the roofing / window replacement at the Sleepy Hollow and at Del Rey. And I think this is misstated here because we're not really talking about replacing windows, we're talking about eliminating some of those windows that are on the roof that are just, you can't see anything.
Clear story, is
Yeah,
that?
the clear story at Del Rey, I
So
remember
that's
that.
what this really refers to. We're not talking about
The
installing
single
windows
Got it.
that are thermal paint, so this is
Right.
an error here.
Can we cross it out?
Yeah, we can do that, keeping.
Because if it's already on your priority list,
Well, it could be, it was,
or unless you want to change the word replacement to something else, or specify Del Rey and Sleepy Hollow, those are like ceiling, clear story
Right, clear
skylights or
stories,
something.
and they're
Skylight,
being eliminated, not really replaced.
yeah, all right, eliminate, eliminate, roof, clear story.
And you are correct about the assessment that thermal paint is really not cost effective. The film is much more cost.
Right, okay. And then I also wanted to comment, the next line, it says water line replacement. I don't remember seeing that, and it's,
There's also an approved plan at Del Rey to do some significant water line replacement. And also, it's gonna require digging and trenching, replacing some galvanized water pipe where the water comes out brown, which should be totally replaced.
do we want to specify at Del Rey, or, I mean, up above it says painting at all schools, so where it says water line replacement, you
At
could,
Del Rey.
yeah, okay, at Del Rey. I don't want it to look like we're replacing all water lines throughout the district.
You know why we're on that one, Sarah, I don't want to interrupt, but
Go
just
ahead.
efficiency wise. This roofing repair and replacement, is that, not to mix our topics again, but is that helpful in our heat world? Roofing can make, it's a little bit of insulation, but it's a big one in terms
I
of,
evaluated the amount of insulation that's in the approved plans,
Yeah.
and my humble contractor opinion was inadequate.
so should we maybe look at upping? And
Alright.
spend some more money in planning to do a better
That
job?
would be my recommendation is a change order for the plans. I mean, it's just a matter of adding Roger R factor. They're already gonna do it, so the money's up the R factor on it. That would be
We've had friends
very
who
beneficial.
made a sizable difference in their homes without air conditioning.
I've got an R49 in my house.
There you go.
Mhm.
So is that, I don't know if that's a goal topic or whether that falls under the
It's
last
really
topic.
not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
what you want to do right now is focus on the main parts of the goal,
Yeah.
and put the details in.
Maybe when you do the other plan, that can sneak into the short-term plan.
Okay, if I could continue, moving down, number 3, under number 3, utilize developer fees, and then it says bullet point, additional portables if needed. If we're gonna do I guess that's depending on developer fees, but, you know, if we're talking about doing a facilities bond, I'm not in favor of more portables unless necessary. So can you comment on what that means, Stuart?
So, you know, we ran into that at Wagner Ranch.
Right.
Mhm.
So, you know, you do these projections and they come out. sometimes,
Okay.
You know, so then you
So it's
have,
like Wagner Ranch.
Yeah,
you
we don't
need
wanna
a
wait till the
classroom.
last- you don't wanna wait till the last minute to have to go out and do that. We wanna
Okay,
kind of run those projections now and then see where we might need a short-term solution to house students.
okay,
We are
But-
approaching capacity
yeah,
at all of our sites without eliminating program. So
right.
that's the point of this.
Well, I just wanted to say, you know, especially after having been to CSBA, if we can have one of those modular classrooms which are, you know, a little healthier or something than the standard portable. I don't know what the timing is on that, but I would be less in favor of portables than a more of a modular classroom.
Focus on just the goals.
Right, but this says additional portables for developer fees.
I know, but it's,
I don't know, it seemed like they said they could put them up very quickly, so I just wanted to bring that up. All right, improving the fields needs to happen for sure. The energy plan. And C is now D, is that correct? Okay. So I'm fine with that. There was a comment that somebody made. I think I saw a couple of comments that said, why don't we move student achievement to be goal number 1 instead of goal number 3?
Yeah, very good.
Um,
Name it first.
I totally agree with that, Sarah.
Students first.
It's,
I don't know if Julie heard
I'm
me.
sorry, I didn't hear that.
There were a couple of comments saying, can we move goal number 3 to be goal number 1 so that it's student achievement first?
These aren't in any priority order. We never put the district goals in any priority.
Right.
They're just
Well,
all goals.
I understand, but it just kind of, it's a little subtle message.
Yeah.
Student achievement should be the number 1 thing, and it'd be nice to have it first.
Well, then they'll be in priority order. So you have to stay on
they'll be in what?
priority order. Saying we're doing this first. We're not. These are all just district goals.
Well, rather than having them randomly ordered,
They're just
Um,
random.
yeah, why not just move goal number 3 to be first?
Let's randomly move.
I'm just saying, we have always responded to people saying, we're doing all these goals, we're not doing one before the other, or one's higher than the other. But if you want to do that, that's up to you.
I sort of agree with Sarah. I think that it sends a message that we are what we are, and that is a school district that puts the achievements of the students in everything that we do is about student achievement. And I heard that everywhere at CSBA. We're all about students, everything that we do. So I kind of agree with that. I was there when Cara made that suggestion, and I like that, just as a bit of messaging.
Consensus on that?
That's up
Too hard to do.
I just realized there's nothing about air conditioning in this facilities district goal, or temperature control exactly, although there is the energy plan. I guess the energy plan is your, is that the same as the short-term climate?
B2.
B2, examine feasibility of air conditioning and alternative solutions. Okay. Okay. All right, I'll leave that alone.
Nearing 10:30, although
All right.
it's still 20
Keep
minutes.
going.
Can I ask one technology question, since we've done the, you touched on the two other priorities? May not be the place in the goal to ask this to Joe, but I think one of the things that's gonna be happening in technology is that OTAC's gonna be making proposals about staffing. Is that a goal that's worth putting as consideration, or is that just in the ordinary course of reviewing the district plan?
Well, we are implementing that as part of the technology plan,
Yeah.
so it is. But then again, that's, you know, the board's prerogative if you want to emphasize that.
I mean, I think it's implicit, that's what A is meant to be, monitored review district technology plan, that OTEC is becoming with, you know, these proposals they're developing.
Correct.
By June 2016, I definitely want to see that happen, but I think it's on track to do it. I'm just getting in a mind meld here, if that's what that is meant to say, or.
Mind meld.
Mind
Right.
meld.
I mean, because I actually also wrote down, like, to add something. I'm not mind melding with you right now. I wrote down, review tech department staffing needs and make recommendations to board, raise staffing, as sort of an added. I hear what you're saying,
Maybe that's part of A, or maybe it's
and I
something.
thought the way I phrased it, moves it, you know, it's just receiving the recommendations, but it is more explicit than not putting it in there, so I'm not sure where you add that, but I personally.
I agree with that, maybe under A, is that a sub A, or does it?
Yeah, we can do that.
Which one are you on? Technology?
A,
Or under D,
let's see. Oh, sure, because it's a budgeting,
yeah,
yeah, well, that's right, because you're establishing the one-time funds, and then maybe your bullet's the second one, which is staffing.
right, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, got it. So kind of consideration of staff.
Okay, is there anything else from the board, or?
Yeah, I had one more,
All
a
right,
couple of comments that I didn't get to say regarding student achievement. One of them was, and I received comments from a couple of OEA members. One of them pointed out for number C, where it's talking about intervention model and meeting the needs of all identified students, that we need to establish criteria for those identified students, or criteria for intervention, which they said is not completely there right now. And the other comment I had was related to that same item C, in addition to intervention, adding a phrase about differentiated learning. And that seems to fit more with the new model of Common Core and what we're doing now, that we're trying to address the needs of all students. This says all identified students, but it's not, in other words, it doesn't identify what identified students. We really want to be identifying, differentiating our learning for all students. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
anything else?
Lastly, we don't have a goal for communication, but I just want to bring up, it would be good to have a goal for communication. I don't know if we want to write one right now, or we want to just hold that thought and include it in something else later. But that communication in terms of throughout the district, as opposed to like between the board and the superintendent or anything else. I just want to bring it up because I know there were about 4 or 5 years ago or so, we did have a communication goal, and that's been partly incorporated in other goals, but just want to say that.
I'm gonna take it for comment to the public. And then back from it. Any public comment?
Yes, absolutely.
Charles?
I sent feedback to each of the board members. I only heard back from one, so I'm hoping all of you received feedback. I really want to focus on one particular area because you did cover a lot of the ones that I would have spoken about tonight. And it was student achievement, which is now not priority, it's random, but it's still up at the top, all right? Okay, I'm going to think take for CTA, and I instituted a Innovation Expo that was hugely successful, and we're going into our second year of having a North and South, a Northern California one and a Southern California one. The thing that's amazing is there are teachers that are doing incredible, innovative things in their classrooms and in their schools. And I didn't see that word in this goal. And I'm concerned about that. I'm suggesting we add things such as the following. Explore innovation opportunities for teachers to grow professionally and strengthen the educational program for students. Produce a plan that provides invigorating options for teachers to innovate in the areas of student learning and professional development for themselves and other teachers. Empower innovative teachers to lead staff development. Explore and offer opportunities to utilize teacher expertise. Do that even more than we're doing already. Encourage teacher collaboration and classroom observations to identify best practices and share and develop innovative lessons. So, observing one another, which we don't do very often. So that was for that goal. I also saw the need for an additional goal that's not in here, and it has to do with negotiations. Not what we do in negotiations, but how we prepare. And I think you've seen that. Target total staff compensation in top quartile of comparable districts. How do you do that? I think you need to have, it's called a Community Financial Advisory Committee, the CFAC, to advise the superintendent and the board with long-term financial model that includes making sure that we pay our teachers a decent wage. From that group, we need to produce an annual report of total compensation comparisons and plan for bridging possible gaps and moving forward towards the top quartile. Establish a mechanism for, oh, that's something different. Anyway, I think there needs to be a priority. I also talked with Teresa Sidrian. I have a friend through CTA, he's on my think tank, who said in Napa they have a compensation formula, and they've adjusted it for the Common Core, through the LCFF, and they no longer have to negotiate salary. Whenever new monies come in, they have a formula. And I said it'd be interesting to kind of check that out. What is, not the word feasibility, but how would that look in our district, and take it back to both teams and talk about what we think about that. And Teresa said that she would look into that. She had heard of it before, and that might be something we want to consider. But maybe have a goal where we look at how do we spend less time negotiating and work more on how do we improve student achievement, and making sure that we're compensated, and that any new monies that come in the district, that teachers get a portion of that, and that we don't have to work so hard at it every year. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Back to the board.
I wanted to mention that I was in receipt of these comments that Charles made, and there were 4 that I particularly starred under your list of the draft district goals do not include. And I really like the idea of having a goal of nurturing the joy of learning,
Yeah.
having a strong creative response to critical needs. I also started producing an annual report of total compensation. And I particularly wanted to talk, or just make note of the teacher's desire to re-examine the policy of children